I was feeling pretty lousy. I just hung up the phone after talking to my wife of 11 years. Our anniversary was coming up in just a couple of days, and the call had ended with her in tears. It struck me as strange, because 3 years back, I nearly lost my job when Kate, her full name is Catherine, got so upset that I might miss our anniversary that she demanded I come home. Fast forward 3 years, and now she's the one missing our anniversary, and no matter what I said, nothing could convince her to come back this time. Funny thing is, I couldn't even figure out why I felt so bad, but the guilt was sitting heavy anyway. Looking back, the past 12 years with Kate have honestly been the happiest I can remember. We first met when she was 24 and just kicking off her career in sales. She'd come by our architecture firm, trying to get us to place ads in fancy magazines we couldn't really afford at the time. With her dark hair and sharp wit, she immediately caught my attention. After chatting with my business partner, I managed to keep her coming around the office long enough to finally get the courage to ask her out. She told me later that she'd known all along we couldn't pay for her company's services, but she was glad we played along and made it convincing enough for her boss to keep sending her back, at least until I got up the nerve to invite her out. I remember on our first date, I cracked a joke about the waiter's toupee just as she was taking a sip of water, and she ended up laughing so hard that water shot out her nose. That moment right there, I knew I was hooked. We dated for more than 6 months, and then she moved in with me for another half a year while she worked on shifting from traveling all the time to settling into an office job. About 4 months after that, we tied the knot. I still can't believe how lucky I am that she agreed to marry me. Not a day goes by that I don't feel grateful. After that rough phone call, I picked up the phone again and dialed my boss. I'd been there since the beginning, back when Craig started the company. Our small team of 4 had managed to make some impressive breakthroughs that really sped things up across the board. "Craig, I know you're in there, pick up," I said, waiting on the line. He answered, sounding rushed. "Dan, you know I'm busy right now." "I'll keep it quick," I told him. "I'm heading out now, and I won't be back until Monday." He sounded surprised. "What do you mean you're leaving? Where are you going?" "I'm going to see my wife for our anniversary," I replied. "I'll be back Monday." He let out a laugh. "All right, have a good trip, and remember to knock before you walk in." I laughed too. "Man, your jokes get better every day." He snorted. "Yeah, I hear that a lot. Probably not from anyone who really knows you. But hey, things have been pretty tense at home since they brought in that guy to run Kate's department. Maybe a weekend in a hotel will help us both relax a bit," I said. He chuckled. "Well, it's worth a try. And if you two decide to get a little wild, just promise me you'll think of me." I rolled my eyes. "You got it. See you Monday." Without hanging up, I dialed Craig's secretary, Rose. If anybody could make things happen, it was her, and I needed a plane ticket, fast. After I finished the call, I hopped in my car and headed home to pack. I was stuffing clothes into my suitcase when my cell phone rang. "You've got 45 minutes to get to the airport and make it through security," Rose said. "Your ticket's waiting at the counter under your name. I got you a return flight on Sunday at 1:30. There weren't any rooms left at Kate's hotel, so I found one for you 2 blocks away. Have a safe trip. See you Monday." She hung up before I could say thanks. I hustled into the bathroom to grab my shaving kit, crammed it in the bag, zipped up, and did a quick run-through of the house to make sure everything was off, including, for once, the coffee maker. After 15 years of living here, I'd picked up some pretty good shortcuts, and with a little luck, and a lot of speeding, I managed to make it to the airport with time to spare. Once I got through check-in and security, I boarded the plane, found my seat, popped in my earbuds, and turned on my iPod. Flying isn't my favorite thing, but music helps keep me from gripping the armrest too tight. About 3 hours later, someone tapped me on the shoulder, snapping me out of a dream about Kate and me. I guess I'd really zoned out. I hadn't been sleeping well for weeks. Work stress played a part, but mostly things between Kate and me had been tense. Not that long ago, we had a pretty lively relationship, but for the past few months, things had gone cold. It had been more than 2 months since she'd let me get anywhere close. It all seemed to start when they promoted some guy from another department to lead hers, passing Kate over. She threw herself into proving them wrong. For the first couple weeks, she came home wiped out, venting about this guy, Paul Reynolds, and even half joking about wanting to get rid of him. That faded after a while, and a few weeks later, she said they'd started working together better. Now they were being sent out as a team to land a big account. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little worried about what might be happening between them, but Kate always reassured me. And honestly, except for the lack of intimacy, she was as caring as ever. As I pulled my bag out from the overhead bin, I started trying to figure out how I could surprise Kate at the restaurant without giving myself away. I caught a cab to my hotel and chatted with the driver about what was going on. He recommended a romantic spot halfway between our hotels, a place with dim lighting and private booths. Sounded just right for what I had in mind, so I thanked him and left a decent tip when we got to my hotel. After checking in, I took a quick shower and got out of there as fast as I could, hoping to catch Kate before she left for dinner. It was just after 5:30, according to the lobby clock. The streets were crowded, so I figured it'd be quicker to walk. The route the front desk lady gave me was easy, and along the way, I even spotted the club the cabbie had mentioned, just a few doors from Kate's hotel. I walked into her hotel lobby at 10 minutes to 6 and waited in line to talk to the front desk. A friendly lady waved me forward. "Hi, my name's Dan Cardiff. I wanted to see if my wife, Catherine, is in her room, and if so, I'd like to speak to her." She checked the system. "Catherine Cardiff. Yes, she's staying with us. Let me call her room." She dialed but shook her head. "Sorry, no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" "Not right now. I was hoping to surprise her, it's our anniversary tomorrow. I'd really appreciate it if you kept this between us," I said, smiling. "No problem, sir. I never saw you. Hope you both have a wonderful day tomorrow," she replied. "Thanks. I think I'll check the restaurant and see if I get lucky. Good night." Following my nose, I found the hotel restaurant on the far side of the lobby. The place was bustling, full of people eating, chatting, and waitstaff hurrying around. I didn't think I had much of a shot at finding Kate in that crowd. I noticed the restrooms toward the back, so I figured I'd take care of business and maybe get a better look around after. On my way through, I scanned the room left and right, but she wasn't anywhere I could see. After I finished up, I stood at the entrance to the hallway and looked out over the busy restaurant again. There was just no way I'd spot her here. Then, out of nowhere, I caught a laugh, 1 in 1,000, but I could have sworn it was hers. I glanced along the booths by the wall, but the seats were high and I could only see a few faces, mostly men, with their dates or wives. There was no way I was just going to stroll up to any tables until I was absolutely sure Kate was actually in there, so I crossed the room and took another look at the wall with the booths. I walked down the row, checking each booth one by one. Then, 3 booths in from the hallway, I saw her. There was Kate, sitting with a man I didn't recognize, eating and laughing. She looked incredible. She had on the same dress she always picked when she was hoping for a night out dancing, both the classic way and the way only a married couple would know. The two of them seemed perfectly at ease together, and I was honestly shocked when Kate reached over, poked something off his plate with her fork, and popped it into her mouth, grinning the whole time. When the guy looked a little miffed, she reached out and gently traced her fingers along his cheek. I just stood there, stunned. What on earth was going on? This didn't look like a dinner with a colleague, it was way more personal than that. Then, to top it off, I had to steady myself on the doorframe when he leaned in and Kate met him halfway for a kiss. My legs nearly buckled. I walked away from the dining room and sank into one of the big chairs in the lobby. I looked down and realized my hand was trembling. I had to laugh a little at that. Good thing I wasn't being called on for anything more demanding than sitting right now. I have no idea how long I sat there. I was still facing the restaurant, and sure enough, I heard that unmistakable giggle again. I glanced up and saw Kate, hands wrapped around his arm, leaning close and laughing into his ear as they strolled out. They walked right by me, close enough for me to see the look on her face, the way she looked at him. It had been ages since she looked at me that way. All at once, it felt like my lungs stopped working. I shot up from the chair and started striding for the door. I'm a pretty big guy, but people usually don't notice me much. This time, though, the crowd moved aside like they sensed trouble. I guess I wasn't exactly wearing a friendly expression. If the revolving door hadn't been padded, I might have launched myself right into the street. I hit the sidewalk and just stood there, breathing hard, hurt, angry, and more than a little heartbroken, but mostly just mad. Suddenly, that same giggle rang out. Before I even realized it, my body whipped around. There they were, pushing out the hotel doors together and heading toward my hotel. I watched as she clung to his arm, leaning into him, and together they turned and slipped into the club I'd scoped out earlier. That snapped me back to my senses. I started toward the entrance but slowed down, didn't want to make a scene right at the door. I paused outside, taking a few deep breaths to steady myself. That look she'd given him was unmistakable, but I guess I needed more proof, something to make it real, I don't even know what. I walked in, stuck to the shadows, and waited for my eyes to adjust. I finally spotted them tucked away in a booth at the far end of the room, next to a little table for two. Keeping low-key, I made my way to a small table nearby. The waitress wasted no time coming over. "What can I get for you, Han?" she asked. "Double scotch, on the rocks," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. From the booth, I heard him say, "Our meeting isn't until 10 tomorrow, so we've got all night to celebrate if you want. I'm glad you didn't let him guilt you into going home." Kate giggled. "Go home and miss our 2-month anniversary? No way. I can't believe it's been 2 months already," she said, and I heard them share a kiss. He laughed. "It would have been longer if you'd taken me up on my offer that first week." She teased back, "I had to make you work for it a little. I am married, you know. I still can't believe you asked me out right in front of Marge, knowing full well I was taken." He replied, "Marge told me you thought I was handsome." Kate laughed. "We really should do something nice for her, for playing matchmaker." Their waitress dropped off more drinks. "To 2 great months together," Kate toasted. "And many more to come," he said, raising his glass. They clinked glasses and I felt my stomach twist. My own waitress appeared and set my drink down. "That all for you, Han?" "Oh yeah, that's it," I said, standing up. I handed her a 10, then reached into my drink with my finger, twisting my wedding ring off. That ring had been on so long, I hardly ever bothered taking it off. It didn't come easily, and when it finally did, it took some skin with it. I gave the waitress a wry smile. "This old thing gets tight after 11 years. At least I didn't have to lose the finger to get it off," I joked, then finished off the scotch in one gulp. I slammed the glass down, feeling the burn. "Phew, that's the first drink I've had in 10 years. "Thanks, miss," I said, turning toward their booth. I walked over just as they were breaking another kiss. The guy looked up at me, probably confused. He had no idea who I was. Kate turned, and the look on her face was something I wish I could have captured on film. Her mouth just moved, but no sound came out. "So, 2 months, huh? That's quite a milestone. I remember our anniversaries. After 11 years, they sort of lose their sparkle, I guess," I said, fixing my eyes on both of them. "Let's see, 2 months. That's the red and gold anniversary, right? Well, you both deserve a present. Here's the gold." I tossed my ring onto the table in front of Kate. "And here's the red." With that, I balled up my fist and socked him square in the face. "Paul," Kate yelled, reaching to help him. I felt a satisfying crunch, but I knew if I didn't get out fast, I'd be spending the night in a cell. I glanced at Kate as she fussed over him. "You should tell your new friend how lucky he is this didn't happen at my place. Call me and let me know where to send your things. And if you're smart, and I'm not saying you are, don't come by the house. Put some ice on that nose, I'm pretty sure it's broken," I said, turning to leave. I walked straight out of the club, headed back toward my hotel, moving as fast as I could. There was no way Kate knew where I was staying, and after what happened, I doubted she'd try to find me. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't thrown a punch since I was 23, and here I was, doing it again 20 years later. You'd think I'd have learned by now. Maybe I did. Don't take anything for granted. Guess that's the lesson. I always hated lessons. I made my way to the front desk. "Excuse me, do you have the numbers for the airlines? I need to get on a flight as soon as possible," I said. "Yes, sir. What airline, where to, and when do you need to leave?" she asked politely. I rattled off all the details, and she assured me she'd call up to my room once she had my flight information. I headed upstairs, but I couldn't sit still. I paced the room, back and forth, trying to process what had just happened. I just couldn't believe it. How on earth did things get to this point? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, if Kate ever needed a second career, she'd make one heck of an actress. The way she'd handled herself the last couple of months, not to mention that tearful act on the phone when I was trying to guilt her into coming home, could have earned her a trophy. The anger started bubbling up again, and I knew I couldn't stay in that room a second longer. I grabbed my bag and took the stairs down to the lobby. When I reached the bottom, the front desk lady was finishing up a call and waved me over. "Sir, if you leave right now, you've got an outside chance of catching the last flight tonight. Final check-in is in 30 minutes. If you don't make it, the next one isn't for another 3 hours." "Thanks," I said, signing the checkout form she slid over to me. "Let's hope the cabbies around here are as fast as they say." She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Sorry your visit ended early. If you're ever back in town, I hope you'll stay with us again." I managed a half smile. I have a feeling I won't forget this visit, no matter how hard I try. I hurried outside and flagged down a cab just up the street. $50 says you can't get me to the airport in under 30 minutes, I told the driver as I jumped in. You're on, boss. He replied, snapping his seatbelt and peeling out. He was as good as his word, got me there in just 20 minutes. I paid the fare plus the 50, thanked him, and sprinted into the terminal. Turns out I needn't have worried, I had a few minutes to spare before the final boarding call. I breezed through security and went straight to the gate, but I was so wound up I couldn't sit still. I just kept pacing, mumbling to myself, hoping no one got the wrong idea. Finally, they called us to board, and I lucked out with a seat to myself. Didn't even bother with music this time, my head was crowded with too many other thoughts. At one point, I almost laughed out loud thinking about Kate's mom, Deborah. She's never been my biggest fan. Deborah keeps her husband Greg in the dark about everything, treating him like a mushroom, feed him garbage, keep him out of the loop. She's never been able to pull that on me, and she's not thrilled about it. I remember her telling Kate once that I'd probably cheat on her, that she'd seen me checking out other women when we were all together. The whole flight home, I just kept asking myself if any of this was real. I pulled out a photo I keep of Kate and me, stared at it for a while. After everything, all I could see was her looking at that other guy, the way she'd looked at me in that picture, but now it was like he'd replaced me. I even looked around to make sure nobody was watching me lose it for a second. You know, people always say men are the ones who forget stuff, but I've never fit that stereotype. Right from the start, Kate would pull the old "do you remember this?" routine, but she picked the wrong guy. I remembered everything. Our late night talks, our dreams, all the little secrets you only share in the dark. And now, after all that, I found myself wondering what else I'd missed. How did I not see this coming for 2 whole months? That guy asked her out the first week, and the only reason it didn't start right then was because she had to keep up appearances about being married. The image of her and that guy at the table kept playing in my mind, the way they acted so close, those little smiles, the touches, even the simple kiss. Man, that stuff's going to stick with me for a long time, no matter what I do with her things. Actually, the idea of getting rid of her stuff gave me a 2-for-1 plan. I'll pack up all her belongings and drop them off at her mom's place. Deborah will find a way to blame me, no doubt, but I'll know the truth and that's enough. The ding of the seatbelt sign jolted me out of my thoughts. We were landing. I squeezed the armrests for a moment, but honestly, it was probably the calmest I'd ever handled flying. Once we were at the gate, I let everyone else hurry out. The last thing I needed was to get shoved and end up in a fight with a stranger. I grabbed my bag from the overhead, fell in line, and made my way off the plane. I headed straight for my car and got in line to leave the parking lot. Honestly, I don't remember much about the drive home, it's all a blur, but I made it. No clue how long it took, but that didn't matter much anymore. Walking into the dark, empty house felt strange. I couldn't help thinking, better get used to it, buddy, this is your new normal. I dropped my bag and headed for the kitchen, flipping on the answering machine as I walked by, just out of habit. Dan, please don't do anything drastic. I'm coming home right now so we can talk. Please, just wait for me, she said, her voice shaky and worried. To be honest, I didn't think smashing the answering machine was all that crazy. It just seemed like justice. The thing said something I couldn't stand to hear, in a voice I wasn't ready to listen to, so I finished it off. Maybe it was a bit much, but hey, they're a lot cheaper than replacing a wall. What did she mean? Don't do anything crazy anyway. Either way, sleep wasn't going to be in the cards for me tonight. I headed out to the garage and grabbed all the luggage Kate had collected over the years. I picked out a couple of matching black bags for her, set them aside, and hauled the rest upstairs. I started with her closet, loading up armfuls of clothes and shoving them into the big suitcase. I made a few more trips, then moved on to her dresser. Some of the stuff in those drawers I hadn't seen in ages, and she used to call me a pack rat. For all I knew, maybe she'd been saving these things for someone else. Once the dresser was emptied, I went downstairs and fetched some boxes for her shoes. Soon enough, I had everything packed and sitting in the front room by the door. I grabbed a bottle of water, sat down, and just stared at the pile for a while. What next? For a split second, I thought how easy it'd be to light up the grill, roast some hot dogs and marshmallows, and just burn it all, but I knew I'd end up explaining myself to the police, and to her. No, I needed something else to do. So on a whim, I drove to the hardware store, bought new locks, and headed home to install them. Seeing all that stuff piled up by the door made it clear it couldn't stay there. Sticking with my earlier plan, I loaded it all into the car and drove over to Kate's mom's place. I backed into their driveway and started unloading everything beside the garage. I didn't want Greg to have to move it all himself, Deborah and Kate weren't likely to lift a finger. As I dropped the third suitcase, Deborah came outside. "Hello, Dan. What's all this?" she asked. "Well, when Kate shows up, she might want some clothes. I was going to let her get them herself, but honestly, I couldn't stand looking at them in my living room any longer," I said. "What do you mean, when Kate gets here? I thought she was still out of town. Why would she need her things here?" she asked, looking puzzled. "Deborah, I don't know where she plans to live next, but I figured she'd end up here, at least until she figures things out. Maybe she's already moving in with the guy she's been seeing, but since I'm not sure, I brought her stuff here," I answered, watching her face turn pale. "What on earth are you talking about? How can you say something like that about my daughter? She only stayed for work, she's absolutely not cheating on you," Deborah said, almost in tears. "Well, the last time I saw them, they were celebrating their 2-month anniversary together at a club near their hotel. After I practically begged her to come home for our anniversary, and she cried on the phone about being sorry she couldn't, she was already out having dinner with him. It looked pretty cozy, so I didn't want to interrupt. After I saw them kissing across the table, I needed a seat just to process it. Then, as they walked past me in the lobby, I could have said something, but the way she looked at him and whispered in his ear, well, I just couldn't bring myself to break that up either. I went outside for air just in time to watch them head off to a nightclub together. I sat at a table near theirs and heard her tell him she'd never leave him alone on their 2-month anniversary. Then he told her it would have been 3 months if she hadn't played hard to get when he asked her out their first week together. I kept going. Eventually, I figured if I was going to make a flight home, I'd have to break up their party. I tried to keep it low-key, but I did feel like I owed them something. So I had my first drink in 10 years, ever since you warned Kate that drinking would ruin our marriage. Then I handed her my wedding ring, and I gave him a broken nose. I thought it was a pretty fair split, honestly. I think I liked his present more. So, when she gets back and puts on another Oscar-worthy show and I send her packing, you can expect her for an extended stay." Deborah's eyes widened in shock. "None of that can be true. How could you say such awful things about your wife of 11 years? I stared right back. "Don't call her my wife again. Maybe you feel you have to stand up for her, she's your daughter, but I don't. I saw it myself, Deborah. I've spent the last 2 months living like a single man while she ran around with this guy. You raised quite the piece of work. She's looked me in the eye every day for months and lied without the slightest bit of guilt. If you think I'm bringing that back into my home, you're as crazy as she is. What you want to believe is up to you. As for me, I'm done. She seemed pretty taken with him, he can have her now. She won't have to sneak around anymore. When she's done spinning her story, I'm sending her over here. You can see for yourself who's lying," I finished, dropping the last box on the ground. "Now I've got to get back. I've changed the locks, so she might not want to be left standing outside. I'm going right in to call her and tell her what you've done. When she's through with you, you'll regret the day you were born," she huffed, storming back inside. "Too late for that. Tell her whatever you want, and I'll be waiting to hear how she plans to explain herself," I called out, then got in my car and headed home. I expected a call after Deborah's threat, but nothing came. I wandered around the house for a couple of hours before ending up in the little corner of the garage where I tinker with stuff. I kept busy until I heard the doorbell. I brushed myself off and went to answer. When I opened the door, I just stepped back and let Kate come inside. "You must have been out in the garage. I tried knocking," she said as I closed the door and followed her in. "Yeah, just cleaning up a few things," I said. "From what I can tell, you've done a lot of cleaning up," Kate said, her voice quiet. "My mom called. Sounds like you've already decided what to do with me." "You didn't really leave me with many options, did you?" I replied. "Did you honestly think I'd just shrug it off while you kept seeing another guy?" She sighed. "I guess I wasn't thinking at all. Not with my head, anyway. That's the thing, I've done nothing but think about it. I didn't have anyone around to distract me, nobody to take out to dinner, nobody to sit with in the dark, to whisper to kiss. I just had you here, looking me straight in the eye and lying the whole time. You'd share my house, eat my food, live my life with me, and then go be close to someone else. So yeah, I've made up my mind." "It doesn't sound like a pretty picture," she said quietly. "Are you really going to throw away 11 years? Was I given a choice?" I shot back. "I don't remember you ever asking me, 'Hey Dan, do you mind if I start something new with another guy, not just a fling, but a real relationship?' I think I would have remembered that conversation. But it doesn't matter now, does it? You and what's his name? You can both carry on without having to worry about me anymore. No more splitting anniversaries, no more juggling. Shoot, you two can even share a car to work. Save a lot of time that way, I said, dropping into a chair. You don't have to be so sarcastic. I understand what you're saying, Kate replied. Do you really, Kate? I said. Because I'm not sure you do. Maybe to you, it's just cheating, maybe you even found a way to justify it in your head. Maybe you even convinced yourself it was my fault. Is that how it is, Kate? Is this my fault? She shook her head, looking at the floor. No. I never blamed you. It just happened. That's not how it works. You don't just fall into something like this for 3 months, especially when you've been married for over a decade. You have to make choices. You have to put in the effort to keep it secret, to keep it going. And you were good at it. I believed everything, hook, line, and sinker. I don't even know how you found the time, but I bet you both got a real kick out of fooling me. And that crying on the phone the other night, wow. That was something else. You should go into acting, Kate. That would have won an Oscar. She looked up, her voice shaky. We never laughed at you. Not once. There was even a time he tried to say something bad about you, and I refused to talk to him for a week. And the crying. It was real. I felt so guilty. You were almost begging me to come home, but I'd already promised I'd stay. I thought, after 11 years, missing just one anniversary wouldn't be such a big deal. I shook my head. Glad you stood up for me. And you didn't sleep with him for a whole week, amazing. I guess I wasn't supposed to remember the time you had a meltdown 3 years ago when I was gone for something important, and I nearly lost my job to rush home. I'm sorry for making you feel guilty, but I noticed you seemed over it pretty quickly when I saw you two at dinner. The way you looked at him. It was clear you were exactly where you wanted to be, with the person you wanted to be with. I saw you in the lobby, Kate. I saw how you looked at him. Don't stand there and tell me it meant nothing. That look, it's been a long time since you looked at me that way. She fumbled for words. But I don't love him. Well, maybe now that you'll have more time together, that'll change. Maybe you two can get a place together, start fresh. Remember how much fun we had in the beginning? Maybe it'll be a new adventure for you, I said. She took a breath. That's not what I meant. What I'm trying to say is, I love you. I couldn't help it, a short burst of laughter escaped before I stopped myself. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but let's be honest, whatever this is, it isn't love. If this is what you do to people you love, then I sure hope I never end up on your bad side. She looked wounded. How can you think that? After all these years, you don't think I love you? All right, Kate. Here's a question for you. If you found out that I slept with another woman, just once, not a whole affair, just one night, how would you react? She was quiet for a moment. I'd probably kick you out and have divorce papers drawn up. That's pretty much what I figured. I even pictured you throwing something at me, I said, managing a small smile. She actually smiled a little herself. I probably would have. So imagine if you found out I'd been pretending for 3 months, acting like everything was fine between us, but then spending my days with someone else. Would you feel loved? After nearly 13 years together, give me some credit, Kate. I know what this looks like. Besides, now you two can get closer, no more secrets, no more sneaking around. You make it sound like you don't care at all. The time I spent with you mattered. I wasn't just pretending, Dan. I really enjoyed being with you. I looked at her for a long moment. When was the last time we were close, Kate? When did you start one of those long kisses we used to have? When did you just come up to me, like you used to, without thinking twice? When was the last time you were really my wife? Don't stand there and talk about love after everything I saw and heard. I might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I wasn't born yesterday. You were talking about him with Marge as soon as he walked in the office. Now you're talking about buying her a gift for getting you two together. Sounds like you found your next matron of honor, just need his best man, and you're all set, I said, settling back in my chair. So, you're just like me after all. Should I expect to see the server at my door? She asked. First, you'll have to tell me where you're planning on living, I replied. But no, you won't be getting served with divorce papers at your doorstep. That's one thing I'll handle myself. I was there when we started, and I'll be the one to finish it properly. You know how I am, if I don't take care of it, it doesn't feel right. I trusted one person completely, Kate, and now you know why, after all these years, I always kept the important things in my own hands. It's tough realizing you have to say I told you so to yourself. It sounds like you spent a lot of time just watching and listening to us. Why did you wait so long to step in? Were you enjoying it or something? She shot back, with a sharp edge in her voice. When I saw you two kiss at that table, it just knocked the wind right out of me. Then, when you walked through the lobby together, I couldn't believe the way you were looking at him. By the time I pulled myself together, I was on overload, I just needed air. While I was outside the hotel, you both came out, arm in arm, and headed to that club the cab driver told me about when I mentioned I was in town for our anniversary. He said it was quiet and romantic. I got there a little after you. Honestly, I'm not even sure what more I needed to see. At first, I thought I'd just walk in and take a swing at the guy, but instead, I sat at a table nearby and ordered a drink. I listened as long as I could, but when you toasted him to many more months together, I did all I could stand. It took everything I had to get that ring off my finger, but after the drink burned its way down, I didn't even feel it. You should tell him how close he came. When he looked up at me, I almost lost it. I thought about just grabbing him right then, but I decided you weren't worth ending up in jail over. You made your choice clear on the phone earlier, and I figured that was that. I have to admit, it felt pretty satisfying when his nose crunched, but with both your incomes, I'm sure he can get it fixed. So that's it, huh? She said, hands on her hips. Case closed, throw Kate out and move on. You see me with someone else, you don't stop us, but you break his nose when you've seen enough. What was that supposed to prove? I didn't do it to prove anything to you, I did it for myself, I said plainly. Why would I fight for someone who respects me so little? Someone who thought I'd just put up with being treated that way. Giving you that ring was me making it clear, I'm done. I'm not pouring any more energy into something that's clearly over for both of us. I can't forget, and I can't forgive. The way you acted, before and now, tells me I haven't been a priority in a long time. So yeah, it's over, and I'm moving on. I don't know how you pictured this ending, but you made this bed, now you get to sleep in it. So, you're just tossing me out and keeping everything? That doesn't seem fair after 11 years, she said. It's always about who gets what, isn't it? I replied. Here's the deal, you want the house, you pay for it. I want the house, too. I like it here. With all the extra space, I can finally make it my own. I just figured you and your boyfriend already had something lined up. His name is Paul, she said quietly. I don't care if his name's Paul or Egbert, I answered. The real question is, does he have a place to live? She nodded, of course he does. Well, there you go, problem solved. I paused for a second, waiting for her to speak. Then it hit me. So, you're worried his wife won't go for that arrangement, huh? I asked, watching her reaction. She looked surprised. Wait, did you check up on him? How did you know he was married? Come on, Kate, I'm not stupid. Why else would you be standing here? So, what's the story? He's not willing to leave his wife for you, or are you getting cold feet yourself? I hope you weren't really thinking you'd just move back in here with me. I thought about it, she admitted. I figured maybe, after 11 years. I cut her off. Think again. There is no us anymore. That was your choice. Remember your toast at the club? Here's to the best 2 months ever, and many more to come. When I gave you my ring, that was it. Don't start with the 11 years talk now. If those years didn't mean anything to you before, they sure don't mean anything to me now. So here's my offer, I'll have the divorce papers drawn up as soon as I can. The house stands as is, if you want it, you pay for it. If not, you can come by and take what you want, but most of your stuff will be heading to the Salvation Army as soon as I can get some replacements. So you're just going to move on, just like that? Divorce me and forget all about me? Is that really all there is to it? She asked, her voice small. You're not seriously trying to get me to feel sorry for you, are you? I said. Of course I'm not going to forget the person I spent so much of my life with. But as for memories, well, it's going to take a long time to get the image of you and him out of my head. The thought of you back in my bed after being with him makes me sick. I don't want someone I can't trust under my roof, and I never will again. So, what's it going to be? Do you want the house, or not? No, I don't want the house. Give me a few days to find a place, and I'll probably take a good bit of the furniture, she said, pulling her hand from her pocket. What do you want me to do with this? She held out my wedding ring. Whatever you want, I shrugged. Heck, use it as a toe ring if you want, it should fit over your big toe. You treated it like that anyway, might as well put it to some use. Fine, she snapped. Maybe I'll pawn it and get some extra cash. I laughed. Don't expect much. They go by weight, so you probably won't get even $30 for it. Not enough for a real gold toe ring, but hey, That's your call. Do whatever you want, it's yours now. I'll call you in a few days about the furniture. Did you get all my stuff out of the closet? She asked, turning to go. I got pretty much everything, but I was a little ticked off and did a pretty lousy job packing. I hope you brought a few clean, wrinkle-free things back from your trip. Mind if I check? She asked. Not at all. You know your way around, I replied, watching her give me a look as she headed upstairs. I sat and waited. I heard her rummage through the bedroom, then the closet, and finally the bathroom. A few minutes later, she came down, tossing some cosmetics into a little floral bag. You were pretty thorough, only missed a couple of things. Might have to give you a call when I'm ready to move everything else, she said, putting on a fake smile. As long as it's not any closer to me, I'd be happy to help, I replied, giving her the same smile and getting up to hold the door. So, you're just going to let me walk out? Nothing else to say? She asked. I thought for a second, and actually, something did come to mind. Would it be too much to ask you to run? She glared at me. Kiss my ass, you jerk, she snapped, storming out the door. I shut the door behind her. Not a chance, I don't even know where it's been, I muttered to myself.